Hey y'all, my name is Serena and this is Serena's Crochet Adventures. Welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to share with you my favorite patterns from 2025. I went through all of the patterns that I have crocheted this year and I found my favorites. So I'm sharing with you 9 of them. I have 9 favorite patterns that I crocheted in 2025. Now, able to let you create some of these things that I created, if you're interested, I did go ahead and put together a Canva document that I will link in the description below. So if you want to take a look at any of the patterns that we discussed today, feel free to check out that link in the description of this video. Now, I want to preface this video also by saying there are some things that are freehanded. If I freehanded a project, I went ahead and included a tutorial or a pattern that is similar to what I did. So you can kind of use what I did if you really like the pattern as well and play off of it or do something similar if you really liked what I did. So we're going to go ahead and start off this video by one of my favorite patterns of the year. Now, I only crocheted this pattern one time this year. It was a more intricate pattern, but it's this mandala pattern. Now, I personally made my mandala into a mandala vest. My initial idea was to take the mandala vest and add sleeves to it because she does have in the pattern some with sleeves and some without. So I had a really good time crocheting this vest, and as I got towards the end, I had really fallen in love with a bunch of ruffle hats that people were making in the beginning of the year. And I really just wanted that ruffle effect on the outside of my vest. And I had an entire skein of yarn left. And I had already only used 2 to make the body. So my thought process was I can use this last skein to do the 2 sleeves and some ruffles around the bodice. Well, I started to do 1 row of ruffles all the way around, and it just didn't give that extra ruffly effect that I was looking for. So I added another row of ruffles, and wouldn't you know it, I was out of yarn. So it is now a mandala vest. I might eventually add sleeves to it one day, but the yarn that I used for this was the Hobie Tea Time yarn, and it was soft to work with, and the color workup on this yarn is absolutely gorgeous. I shared this pattern in a short, and I really had a fun time creating the short because at this time I was listening to a lot of Kevin Yee. I still do, but it was really funny. His little audio that went with it.
I crocheted this. Does it crochet? Does it crochet? Am I crocheting? I hope so, because it took a month to make, and I'm so tired.
But this pattern is $8 on Etsy. I paid for the pattern. You could try to recreate the pattern without paying for it if you think you can do that. I personally really just like following patterns sometimes so that I can have more of a mindless project, because crochet isn't my job. Like for some people, when crochet is your job, making patterns and selling them makes sense. But for me, I just want to enjoy, relax, and create and not have to frog back a bunch of times. I want to create something that I love, that I have a general idea of what it's going to look like, but maybe I'm just playing with the colors more and stuff like that. So I ended up creating this. I created it as a vest, and I made a little bit of the alteration. Like I said, the only alteration I did was I just did some ruffle stitches around the outside, and I loved the final product. The next pattern that is my favorite pattern was also worked up in the very beginning of this year. I started it in January and I finished it in March, and I might have had other projects going while I was working this pattern up, but it was using very tight stitches. It was a C to C blanket using the Big Twist Supernova line. Now, I don't know if Michaels has this line yet or anymore. I know it was sold on Hirschner's after Joann's closed down. I don't know who sells it or if it's even still a yarn that's available, but I do have some more of the Supernova yarn, and I do have some plans for it in the future. I'm really glad that I have this blanket with all these different colorways from the Big Twist line, because now it's kind of something that I can look back on. And I loved Joann's. I was definitely a Joann's girly. I would shop at Joann's for yarn more so than any other store. So we definitely all miss Joann's. However, I'm really, really glad I have this blanket. It reminds me of the Joann days. But the corner to corner tutorial that I followed was an alt knots tutorial. I watch a lot of alt knots videos, and So what I included in the Canva document is a YouTube link to a C2C tutorial from AltKnots. Now, the reason I did her tutorial is she does her C2C blanket a little bit differently to create the tighter stitches. And after I shared my blanket, I got a lot of questions where people are like, what is this magic? How are your stitches so tight in the corner to corner blanket? Well, instead of chaining three, I chained two, just as AltKnots does. And the initial chain, you do a chain 5, work into 3 chains, and then there's only a chain 2 left. So if you know corner to corner, you kind of might know what I'm talking about. But if you don't know corner to corner very well, then you can go ahead and refer to the tutorial in the Canva document. It is the second link in the Canva document. It just says C2C blanket, car blanket. I have this as my car blanket. It stays in my car, and when I'm in the car road tripping or traveling back and forth, I get to wrap myself in this blanket. So I love that I have a car blanket. I got that idea from my older sister. I made a blanket and I gave it to her, and I was like, here you go. And she's like, oh, I love it. It stays in my car and it's nice and cozy. And when I go places, if I need one, I just grab it. And she's brought it to my mom's house and everything. And I just love that I was able to gift her something that she's able to actually get a lot of good use out of. The next pattern that I wanted to share with you guys is another pattern that I finished kind of early in the year. I do believe it was about May of this year. I crocheted a very colorful rainbow hexacardi, and I freehanded the hexacardi. I made the 2 hexagons. I joined them in the middle. I added some length to the sleeves and to the body, and then I just did a double crochet ribbing around the sleeves and around the body. When I talk about a double crochet ribbing, I do 1 row of all double crochets, and then I alternate front post double crochet to back post double crochet all the way around. And then on the next round, whatever one was the front post double crochet continues to be the front post double crochet. Whichever one was the back post double crochet continues to be the back post double crochet. I do that until I like the length of the ribbing, and then I stop. It's nothing fancy, nothing super difficult or anything, but I really like this method of making ribbing, and it really is stretchy, and it does kind of bring that fabric in and make it stretchy. And it's a way to do a ribbing that isn't the half double crochet that you then have to slip stitch into your pattern and try to make sure it looks good. I've tried that before and it didn't work out well for me. I don't know if it was a user error or what, but the ribbing wasn't as tight as I wanted it to be. So the double crochet ribbing with the front post, back post alternate, that is my favorite way to do the ribbing. But that's what I did on my hexacardi, and I found a pattern on Yarnspirations that it just says Caron Hexi Stripes Crochet Hooded Cardigan. Now, on the picture with the white background, it doesn't look quite as fun and vibrant as the picture of the girl actually wearing it. Now, when you see her wearing it, it looks oversized, it looks cute, and it makes you want to wear it more. So I like this picture personally. Now, they use the Caron Colorama Halo for this, and I think it worked up into such pretty colors. I personally really like the big sleeves as well. If you don't love the big sleeves, just stop working up the sleeves a little bit before it gets to your arm and start doing some decreases, and then double crochet ribbing or something like I explained earlier, and you could do it that way. This crochet hooded cardigan pattern also has a hood, which my crochet pattern that I freehanded doesn't have a hood. So I really liked that about this pattern as well. It is a free pattern, and I do like to follow patterns every so often, especially if there's a pattern that goes with a specific yarn like this one does. And I really like the Caron Colorama Halo. It is so soft and squishy of yarn. So I could see myself getting some of this and actually following this cardigan pattern and making another one, but with, instead of the sleeves tight at the wrist, just having the big open sleeves like it does, and not doing the ribbing around the edge either, just kind of leaving it open and having a hood. I think that looks like a great fun way to have like a nice flowy piece of clothing. A lot of times I think I'm going to make something oversized and I run short on yarn. That's what happened with one of my last projects. I made what I wanted to make out of 2 skeins of yarn was going to be an oversized cardigan, but I quickly realized that it was a fitted, more fitted, not perfectly fitted, it's a little loose-ish style, like t-shirt style is what it ended up being. So I was like, oh, well, I'll try again in the future. But this is part of why I love following patterns, because if I don't love a pattern that I work on, a lot of times I'll just not want to fix it, not want to frog it, not want to finish it. So for me personally, I'm just wearing my shirt as is, and I personally still really like it, so I'm not upset about it. But what's really neat about this pattern also is they have a few different sizes for you to follow: extra small and small, medium large, XL, 2XL, and 3XL, 5XL. So it's very size inclusive. So that's awesome. I love that about this pattern. I love when patterns can be more size inclusive. I believe my first finished pattern for this one was in June of 2025, and it's this top that I'm wearing right here. This top came from a book that I got on Amazon. I got it on my Kindle, so it's on my phone and I can just view it there, or on my iPad. Now, this top is from, I think it's Selena Baca. It is a tank top. It's called the Lindsey blouse. On this Crochet Tops link that I included in the Canva document, it actually has 26 patterns for first time sweaters, shrugs, ponchos, and more, is what it says on the cover. But she does have a lot of really good looking tops in this. And what's really neat about this is this was a top down pattern. So I didn't have to join the seams at the shoulders and on the waist and stuff. All I had to do was just keep crocheting. And when I was done, I had a couple of ends to weave in. Now, this pattern right here was using the jewel spun Sirdar yarn. I watched a video by TL Yarn Crafts where she was reviewing the yarn spun yarn, and I loved it. I thought it was so pretty, and I just so happened to be able to stop shortly thereafter at a local yarn shop, and I was looking for this specific yarn, and I found it in a beautiful pink color. The first of the shirt that I made was a pink and orangish colored yarn, and then I loved that one so much that I purposefully bought more skeins to make this green one and a purple one that I also wear. I throw this in the wash and in the dryer. I try not to throw it in the dryer. I try to lay it flat to dry, but my husband doesn't always remember that. But it's okay, because technically it's acrylic yarn and it can be washed and dried. And the really neat thing about this is after it's been washed, it's become softer and it lays on my body better and is so comfortable. And I really suggest this yarn. I used 2 skeins of the jewel spun Sirdar, and I had enough leftover yarn to make a beanie and a hat on some of the different, I think I made a hat for the purple one, a beanie for the green one, and a bandana for the pink one, I think is what I did with the leftover yarn. But either way, I did alter this pattern a little bit as well. What I did with the pattern for this shirt is the first shirt, I added a couple of rows and it was still a little short. So the next 2 shirts that I made, the purple and the green, are now more my favorites because I ended up adding even more than that because I like my shirts to be a little bit longer and I am a little bit taller, so I need that extra length just to enable for it to sit where I want it to sit on my body, which is really fun about making wearables is you can choose the fit. You can choose where it starts, where it ends, and all that good stuff. I love that about crocheting wearables, and I got so obsessed with this pattern. This pattern was so easy to work up. I think I was working, and so like on my days off and on my evenings off, I would work it up, and I'm sure I had this worked up within a week. I don't doubt that at all whatsoever. But there's a lot of other really cool patterns in here. You get 26 patterns for the price of the book. The price of the book on Kindle is $20. If you buy it paperback, it's $25. But if you break that down, it's $1 per pattern for the paperback about. And it's a little less than that if you get the Kindle version. Now, you might not like all the patterns in here, but I can tell you, I personally like a majority of the patterns in here, and I have more patterns from this book that I want to make, but I always have more stuff that I want to make, and I don't have the yarn yet that I want to make for these, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out, do I want to use more of this jewel spun yarn, or do I want to try a different yarn when I go to work up these crochet tops. So next up is an easy peasy free pattern that I got off of Yarnspirations. I used the Flower Power yarn to make this bag, but they have this bag shown as using the regular granny square yarn, which is also a very pretty pattern. I personally love my version with the purple and white Flower Power yarn. I think it was super girly, super cute, but you could mix and match the Flower Power yarn and the granny square yarn. You could just use one or the other. And if you want to elevate this pattern, you can put a liner in the bag. This pattern doesn't come with a how to put a liner in the bag option, but this one right here is very cute. I had a fun time making it, and it's a good size. I'm able to put a good size like skein of yarn in there, my phone, my wallet, and whatnot. And if I wanted to put like any hooks or anything like that in with it, I would want to put them in a case that's big enough so that it doesn't fall out of the holes, because I don't have a liner put in here. And if you wanted to be able to put little items in this bag, you would definitely have to have a liner. It could also work really nice as a beach bag if you wanted to throw in a swimsuit and a towel and some sunglasses and go to the beach. But what was really, really nice about this one specifically is I used exactly one skein of Flower Power yarn. I used all of it. After weaving in my ends and everything, I literally just had a tiny pile of scraps. I don't have a big space to keep all of my yarn scraps, so I personally tossed those little tiny yarn scraps at the end. So I didn't have anything left. It used an entire skein, and I love it when a pattern can do that for me. So next up, around the same time that I made this bag, I started working on a curtain for the sleeper in my truck. Now, I have now made the curtain for the sleeper in my truck, but now we still have to hang it. So it's unfortunate we haven't gotten to hang it yet, but I had to find the little clips for it to attach to, and those are in the mail. So hopefully those will get installed very early in the new year. I found a pattern using granny squares where you can join the granny squares and get a similar look as I got. This one is called the Red Heart Spectrum Dreams Granny Square Blanket. You can alternate the way that they did. They used 3 colorways in this pattern, but you can alternate the way that they did. You can use more colors or you can use less colors. I personally used 2. I used the Flower Power and then the granny square, but I kind of did it in a similar fashion as them, where it was kind of like diagonal, and it was Flower Power and then the granny square and then Flower Power and the granny square is how I did it. So on this pattern, they use what's called the flat slip stitch join. Now, I personally used a single crochet because I wanted the single crochets to kind of pop up in between the different granny squares on one side, and I personally like the way that I did it, but everybody likes to do things differently. Another really great joining method that you could use is the join as you go method, and that method is a method where you have a granny cluster in between each, and it kind of lays flatter. In my opinion, it's a really great way to add a little bit of width, a little bit of height to your blanket, and keep it flat and looking really nice. A lot of people like the join as you go method as well, so kind of play around with the different methods that you can use on joining a granny square blanket, but this granny square blanket looks really nice. I like it. Next up is actually a video that I just did at the end of 2025. It is the Hexagon pattern from MIPS, MYPZ. So the website is us.mypz.nl. And then this crochet pattern is $9 on MIPS. But what it is it's a hexagon, and it has a flap on it as well. But I really like this bag. I like the way it looked. I liked the yarn. And when I ordered this kit, which it was like a $50-ish kit, I ended up spending about $100 between shipping and the kit because it came from the Netherlands. So I ended up spending $100 on it, and I got 2 bags out of it. And in my head, I was like, okay, 2 bags for $100 means it's like $50 a bag. They're each small bags, but they're using such vibrant and pretty and hard to find yarn. So I don't mind. I really do like the bag. I just don't know if it's worth the price. I don't know that I would get another full kit from them again, but I absolutely love their patterns. I recently ordered some yarn and I plan on doing a pattern of theirs using a different yarn, and I hope I'm able to get that video out to you guys by the week after this video comes out. But it is going to take me some time because I'm making a whole cardigan, and so you'll have to bear with me. Hopefully I can have it out next week, but if not, I'm sure by the week after that it'll be out. But this hexagon pattern was really fun. I can't wait to get into their other pattern. I personally am probably just going to buy their patterns for $9 and try to recreate them using different yarns just so that it's more affordable. And their yarns are specialty yarns too. They're super soft merino and they're beautiful and luxurious. But I'm a truck driver and I'm out and about a lot and I go from place to place and sometimes things get misplaced, you know? So I don't want to use the most luxurious yarn for stuff that I'm keeping on the road with me. If I leave it at home, that's one thing, but I also like to have a lot of things that I make on the truck with me. So I plan on using cheaper yarn and finding cheaper alternatives. And either way, it's still more affordable that way. That just means I can make more projects, right? Like, I don't know. I like using patterns. Like I said, I don't mind paying for patterns, especially when it's a pattern that I absolutely love. Like, I don't even think about the $5 or the $9 or whatever dollars that I pay for a pattern. If I am making multiple of the patterns or whatever, that's great. That's why I love that I was able to include a book in here. There's 26 patterns in the book. So technically, if you tried to work up each pattern in the book, that book could take you all year to get through. And so if you pay $20 for crochet patterns at the beginning of the year and you use all the crochet patterns in that book, really, you got your money's worth if you ask me. But back to free patterns, because I know we all love free patterns. My next pattern that I want to share with you guys is from Premier Yarns, and it is using the Just Chenille cones. And I have used the cones on every blanket I have made, but this linen square blanket is the second pattern that I'm sharing with you guys in which I have made multiple of this blanket. Now, I did make some alterations to this pattern as well. Originally in their pattern, when you look at their pattern, it says to do in the corners a single crochet and then a chain and then another single crochet. Well, the alteration that I made was to chain 2 in the corners, and what that did was it helped the blanket lay better. I don't know how to explain it fully, but the first couple blankets that I made, it kind of like pooched up in the center and then kind of laid flat as it got larger. Once I started to do the chain 2 in the corners from the very center, it started to just like lay flat all the way. So that's my biggest thing that I would recommend when using this pattern is when you do a corner stitch, do a chain or a single crochet, a chain 2, and then another single crochet. That will help your pattern lay flat and be more square at the end of the pattern. Now, I have made 4 of these blankets so far this year. I made a brown and white one for my mom. I made a purple and yellow one for my mother-in-law. I made a pink and black one that I kept, and I made a blue and gray one, which I have gifted to somebody who purchased it from me for their grandson. And I have another one that I have to make. My yarn just got here. I have some pink and pink yarn that I am going to use to make another one of these blankets to give to this gentleman because he actually purchased 2 blankets. I've so far only been able to do one, and now I will be doing the second one. But he absolutely loves the blanket. I love the way the blanket turned out, and I can't wait to see the way the pinks play with each other because I got a light pink and a dark pink. So it's still going to have this like harlequin. It kind of reminds me of like a harlequin pattern or like a houndstooth pattern, but not quite. It's slightly different, but I can't wait to see how like the light pink and dark pink play with each other because there's not quite as much contrast. So hopefully it looks good. Obviously, I will share that with you guys in my shorts as I start to work on the pattern. So look out for that in this shorts section of my videos. The next pattern that I want to share with you guys is the last pattern that I finished this year. It is my last video of 2025. And boy, oh boy, did I have fun making this pattern. The next pattern is the 6-Day Star Blanket from Betty Big Knit. Now, I kind of missed the bandwagon when it was super popular. I was very interested in making the 6-Day Star Blanket, and I just hadn't gotten there. I was like, it says it's supposed to take 6 days, but I work a lot, and so I waited till the season kind of slowed down to see if I really could work up the pattern in about 6 days. And even though I skipped a day or two, it took me a week to make. And there was still a day or two that I didn't actually end up crocheting. I had a couple days off, so it probably took me like 3 full days of crochet, but I could totally take you 6 like 3 or 4 hour sessions if you use the bulky 6-weight yarn. Now that's what I did personally. I used the bulky yarn. I didn't use a small yarn. I used the Karen Anniversary Cake yarn and the Baby Bee Hobby Lobby yarn, and I alternated between every 3 rows those 2 yarns, and it turned out beautifully. I absolutely love it. If you want to hear more in-depth information about that pattern, I did a pattern and yarn review. Now, typically I'll do a yarn review or a kit review, and I've never really done a review on a pattern, but since I use so many patterns, I decided that going into the next year, I want to start doing more pattern reviews along with my yarn reviews. So if I'm making a new pattern with a new yarn, I can give you guys my opinion on both the yarn and the pattern, or if I'm using an old yarn that is tried and true and I love, I might give you a little bit of info on the yarn that I use, but then I can just focus on the review for the pattern itself. So that's what I plan on doing in the new year. That is all of the patterns that I have to share with you guys today and the alterations that I made on them. I hope that you had as much fun as I did making this video, watching it. I hope that I gave you some inspiration for maybe what you can make in 2026. And yeah, let me know what you think of the video and the patterns that I shared with you guys in the comments down below. And I'm going to start working up a new list of things that I want to crochet for 2026, and I think I'm going to share that with you guys coming up soon as well. If I make a new list for 2026, I'm going to see how closely I can follow it throughout the year. That would be really fun, and it could provide me a blueprint, and we can see which ones we get to, which ones we don't get to, and which ones might fizzle out by the end of the year. But anyway, again, I thank you so much for sticking around with me through the entire video. If you made it this far, hit like on the video so that I know that you liked the video, and feel free to hit the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I come out with a video. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.